This is Advisor 3.0, a show designed to help you as a financial advisor elevate your professional practice, transform your clients' lives, and take your business to the next level. I am Abraham Okusanya. Welcome to the show. There are two very, very important topics that I think impact the future of financial planning as we know it. The first one is internal succession, and the second one is AI and the adoption of technology more broadly amongst financial planning firms. My guest today has been in the forefront of those two very, very important trends. So Alasdair Walker is the managing director and now, owner of Optimum Financial Planning. Alasdair, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Abraham. Thanks for having me.
So, for the purpose of our audience who may have been under the rock for the last decade or so, you've been, a high profile in the industry, with the work that you do with. That you did with the PFS and the work you're doing these days on AI. But just give a little bit of an introduction to the audience. Tell us a little bit about you and Optimum Path.
Okay. In fact, I think the last time that we spoke on a podcast was with Sarah Lord.
Yeah.
And it was all about the PFS. So I'm quite glad that that's not on the agenda today, or maybe not much on the agenda. About me, I joined the financial services profession as a trainee. I think I was officially a trainee advisor, but I was mostly doing power planning,
right,
as you do, back in 2011, having worked at a bank for a couple of years. And I joined as a trainee at the business that I now own. So for the day job, I've never known anything else.
Right.
I've just known the business that we're in. And we were, for a long while, Handford, Aikenhead and Walker. And then we rebranded at the point the management buyout completed in January this year to Optimum Path. Although that was in the works for a few years. I was Phil Bray at Yardstick's least favourite person, I think, for a while because we were holding them off. The first time ever a marketing company has been chasing their customer to finish a website.
Right.
They were waiting for us for a while, but that rebranded. So I joined the PFS financial planning panel back in 2016, and I didn't tell anyone this at the time, but it was because I had no idea what financial planning was or should look like. And I thought, here's a really interesting opportunity to learn from a load of experts, because there were they'd got some real experts on that panel. So I joined, basically went round business by business to all the other panel members and learned all of their secrets, and then tried to put them together in our business, which had been going on since 1978, doing very traditional financial advice, reviewing people's investments, trying to look after the money side,
right, but
never really looking too hard at the human side. So I turned up a year after doing all this learning, and I said to then my boss, the future is something completely different from what we're doing, and we need to change it. And to his, eternal credit, he said, "Sure, let's run with it." And I didn't have any sort of formal management responsibility. I just had some ideas, and in the space of the next year or two, we completely changed the business model with all of the existing clients and all new clients to full financial planning every time with every client.
That's incredible. So you joined the business, the profession in 2011.
Yep.
You went through this process of changing everything sort of 2016,
Yep,
about a decade ago. And then from that point onwards, it took, 9 years for the succession to happen. So give us a picture of the business today.
Yeah.
And then we can go back and talk about that process of, the joys and the pains of, management buyouts.
Yeah. So today, there's me. I'm the sole owner, managing director, and a financial planner in the business, still seeing clients and bringing most new clients in. I've got two other financial planners, one who's been working with us for a long time and one who is brand new. Mm-hmm. So he's just transitioning from power planner to planner. and doing a great job at it by all accounts as well. We look after about 240 client households between the three of us. And as I said, full financial planning with every client every time. Our investment philosophy, I think, looks very similar to Timeline's. So it's a keep the costs as low as possible, control what we can control, don't try and control what we can't. And that works very well too from that perspective. The team as a whole is about 9 or 10. I say about because we got someone off on maternity leave. So do you include them or not? I don't know. So yeah, there's a really good team of really highly geeky technical people.
Yeah.
Mostly serving clients who are really highly technical geeky people, which is great. Clients find us because we focus on the detail. So we have very detail focused clients, and I speak to other advisors about that, and they look at me like I'm mad. They're like, they're my least favorite kind of clients. I'm like, send them on my way then. I love dealing with those kind of clients.
Incredible stuff. So take me back to that conversation, with the founders of the company, 3, maybe 4 years ago. And I remember this because we were together at the CISI Financial Planning Conference, the year before, and there was conversation about the founders of the company wanting to retire, and there was obviously a conversation about whether they sell the firm to somebody else or whether they sell to you, and you carry the baton. Take me back to that point and the conversation that happened at that point.
So probably going back a little bit further still helps to give context. And this, I think, is probably the most important thing we did right as a business, or Jim, who was my old boss, did right. And that was, he gave me a reason to stick around really early on, and he gave me a strong incentive to stick around. And I don't see this happening, I don't think, nearly enough with financial planning firms of our kind of size. So to give context to size for people who are watching or listening, turnover is about 1.25 million. When I joined, it was about 300,000. So we've had quite a growth story since then. But when I joined, probably a year into having got the qualifications and seeing clients, and it kind of being clear I was serious, I was provided with an option for 24% of the shares.
To buy.
Buy.
Yeah.
But to buy at the value then.
That it was then, yes.
Yeah. And that was quite a powerful incentive, I think, because it gave me, well, one, it meant it would be affordable. Because one of the challenges, I think, is as an employed advisor or somebody working in a bigger business, the more you grow the business, the higher the cost for you to buy that business. So you've got this kind of carrot on a string at the end of a stick, and you're on a treadmill and you're trying to get closer to the carrot, and it's it's not really working. So that helped because that locked some value in. So over the next 5 years, I bought into that part ownership. So that had given me a reason to stick around. I'd then clearly been interested in growing the business and making changes, management responsibilities, all that kind of thing as well. So there was a de facto succession in there. So we did that bit really well. Rob also had some succession planning part in it. What we didn't do well enough was sit in a room and really say to each of us, this is what I personally want out of my career or out of the future of the business. I think we were a little bit we made a few too many assumptions about what each other wanted. And I think I see that happen a lot too. And it's great because I'd always advocate for, just be really open and honest and transparent. And then actually when push came to shove in that room, I'm not sure we were. And so we all thought we were on a track that we were on. And then it turned out we all had slightly different ideas. Then, something happens and somebody has to make what they want clear. And then you go, oh, great. What do we do now? Back to the drawing board or scrap it all or whatever. So when we spoke, I think I was looking at options to, would we bring in external funding to buy the business? Would we borrow? Would we sell the business? And I think we had to establish the kind of market value. So all of that really good planning we'd done before felt all of a sudden like it had been thrown in the air and we didn't know where it was going to land. But again, testament to Jim really and Rob. We managed to get ourselves sat down in a room, advocate for ourselves, have a really honest conversation about what each of us wanted. And from that, I think there was a popular book a few years ago, like Radical Candor, right? Yeah. From that radical candor, from
Kim Scott,
from that sitting down and just really basically the danger is when you know each other really well, you end up advocating for each other. So I remember saying that when we did the original MBO negotiation, Adam Owen chaired it, sort of facilitated that discussion with us. And he said we were the only board that had where the buyers had argued to pay more and the sellers had argued to pay less when we were sort of planning in the first place. So we banned ourselves from trying to advocate for each other. And we sat down and had a very honest conversation and worked out a way that it could work. And thankfully, we didn't have to bring in outside borrowing. We didn't have to bring in outside equity. Everybody got what they wanted and needed. And we ended up with the best possible outcome. But probably when we spoke then, I couldn't see the path to that outcome at that point. So I'd have been like, oh, it's all gone wrong. But you can still, if everybody, I think just transparency, honesty, and trust got us there in the end.
So this is incredible. So the first thing I'm taking away from this is if you, and I have this conversation all the time with the G2, the G2 financial planners, people who are brought in or who came into a financial planning business as the successors for the founders. If the plan is that you're going to, buy the founder out or founders out in 5 years' time. And there was no equity conversation and discussion and implementation sort of now or sooner rather than later. If you're waiting for all of this transaction to happen in 5 years' time, well, you're already setting yourself up for trouble, because as you said, there was an offer, not on day one, but, soon enough for you to own a slice of that equity of that business where it is today at that point. So talk to me, how did you finance that 25% that you bought at that point?
So I had a long time on the option.
Right.
I think originally it was about the longest the accountants would let us get away with. It was 7 or 8 years.
Right.
Set at the value at the point
you said the given. Value now. Yeah.
And that's the key.
Right.
And it takes us, I think, as a, because I'm now thinking about what will my succession look like.
Yeah. Oh, you're a baby, but
but I should be thinking about it far sooner than I think I should be thinking about it. And I'm thinking it's quite hard to think, oh, well, I'll give away the value today because I hope it'll grow.
Yeah.
But that just gets you both, I think, sort of gets your views aligned, gets you thinking about the same thing, looking in the same direction. Because as the next generation, I was thinking, well, if I grow this, I'm building the value for myself.
Yeah, for me. Yeah.
How did I fund it? That's a good question. By not taking very many holidays, by sort of ploughing any bonus that was earned into it, and actually just pretty much out of cash.
Yeah.
And over time, as I say, because the option was written very loosely, so I could buy a bit and then save a bit more and buy a bit. And because the company was pretty small when I joined, it wasn't an unachievable amount of money either.
Right. And so you funded that out of earnings, bonuses, and then dividends that that you plow back into that. And I think that's important. It's also important for Jim that you are paying for that equity rather than it being quote unquote gifted to you.
Yeah, I think so. Brett Davidson has this phrase. It's like you've got to feel the pain. Like the next generation has got to feel some of the pain of buying in, even if it's nominal. There is an aspect of if it's given to you, you haven't felt the pain of earning it, and I think there's something in that. And as I say, I think there's too much pain if you have to buy in at the end valuation,
right?
because understandably, next generation advisors will be sitting there thinking, but I've helped build this thing.
Yeah.
And
I've seen that actually where, the next generation of advisors have helped build the thing and it's now valued significantly more.
Yeah.
And they've been asked to come up with that capital and they don't have that capital. And it's like, you've helped build a business that you can't afford to buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's like the financial services version of the hedonic treadmill. But and so somewhere in the middle worked well for us. I've advocated for it with other people, with other firms who've been talking about succession over the years, but I haven't seen it happen very often, really.
Yeah, I've seen a couple. I mean, Gretchen went through this, type of process, slightly different, but in very early on, she's on the cap table, and so if I'm going to give any advice to any G2, financial planner who is a successor to the G1 or to the current owners, I would say, get yourself on the cap table, and it should be a meaningful chunk, 10, 20%, 25 would be great, that would be one. So let's go to that point then, when you need to have that conversation about the full succession. Often, in my experience or in my interaction with planners, that can be triggered by anything. It could be triggered by health of the G1. It could be triggered by consolidators knocking. So what happened? What transpired in your case, and how did you navigate the conversation?
Yeah, so it was a health trigger,
right.
And that was unexpected by definition, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think we'd ever considered that might be the reason that we'd be having that conversation. So that made it a bit harder. But sitting down and talking about it and saying, this is what we want. My approach to that, which will come as no surprise to you, Abraham, I suspect, was that I just had massively overworked the prior. So I'd looked at market valuations. I'd spoken to sell-side brokers. I'd considered, or in fact had heads of terms with what was then the primary lender for small firms.
Yeah.
I'd done everything I could to say, these are the 4 or 5 options that we as the group that own and run this business have. Effectively, what are everybody's red lines? What most closely meets our collective needs and individual needs, and what keeps the business healthy and continuing throughout. And it was that overwork in my case probably that meant that we ended up with a good outcome, because we could consider everything. It wasn't like, oh well, I wonder what we could do if we borrowed. Who could we talk to? That had all been done.
You did explore those.
Yeah. So I had a really good picture of the market for firms of our size, of the lending options, and was able to bring all of that and say, this is what we need. And then thankfully actually didn't have to use any of it, which is helpful. So
ultimately, did you end up with some sort of owner financing where you're paying back the founders as over a period of time?
Basically, since we'd agreed the management buyout structure that we thought we were going to use, I'd worked out what I thought I should be paid for the day job. I was a director, dividend earner. It's all shares of profits anyway, but I'd worked out what I thought I should be paid for the day job and was taking that, and then everything else was being effectively saved within the group companies for the ultimate transaction. So there was an amount in there,
cash in the business,
cash in the holding company, I suppose technically, that was ready, but it wasn't enough to pay the whole amount, because it had come. I think we were probably 3 or 4 years earlier than the original plan. So it was that bit that we had to, or that I thought I would need to fund. But actually, and again, testament to Jim and his generosity, sort of ease of working with this stuff. He basically said, why would you pay a lender 12%.
12%, 15 in some cases.
I know. Why pay them 12%? I don't mind taking the rest of the payment, and actually it was interest free. So that's and he structured it in a way that meant the earlier years we're paying slightly less and the late years we're paying slightly more. So I offered a fixed amount each year for 4 years for the final payout, and we've ended up doing slightly less to ease the. He was saying, well, you're going to have to recruit another advisor to replace me, so we'll make it a bit easier at the start.
Yeah.
So again, it was a little bit of back and forth, but again, advocating for each other as much as advocating for ourselves.
That's good. I mean, and I've seen that as well. When you have that owner financing structure, trust is essential and understanding is essential. I have seen third party finance, where there's a funder in the market who funded the transaction. There's interest cost in the equation.
Yeah.
Talk to me about valuations and where you landed. Did you go through a process to get sell-side brokers to value the business, or did you actually have seen instances where you tempt consolidators to put offers on the table, and that becomes the starting point of the negotiation in terms of the value of the business? How did you approach that?
Yeah, I think we never formally appointed a sell-side broker. There were a couple that were very helpful in sort of initial conversations and gave us a really good feel for the market. Happened to know a couple of people personally who aren't sell-side but sort of are quite senior within the consolidation space, and had some informal conversations with them too, and landed on a feel for where the value of the business was. Because of the nature of what we do, it gets very technical very quickly, but because of the style of work that we do, because I won't compromise on the investment solution.
Yeah.
We are an EBITDA only sell, basically.
Yeah.
Because no one's going to move our.
There's no margin uplift,
exactly. No one's going to move all our clients into some like Jersey-based DFM solution at high cost. So that was off the table. So we knew we were an EBITDA multiple option. So that simplified things a little bit.
Yeah.
And then
give me a range. What's the range of the multiple EBITDA multiple? That give me a wide enough range that people can't tell.
I mean, the space a year ago, 18 months ago for firms of our size was very much. It was kind of 6 to 9.
6 to 9
depending
is
on
where
quality, right?
Yeah.
We were,
and especially when there is this no margin uplift. And for the uninitiated, you want to explain margin uplift?
Yeah, well, it's just if you're a consolidator and you're looking at a firm and you're going, well, how many of those can we get into our DFM? Yeah. Then you get what they call them, the verticals, don't they?
Yes.
You know all about the verticals.
Yeah.
You get the verticals and all that sort of stuff. And I'm just too stubborn to let any of that sort of stuff go. Like the clients have got to win at the end of the day. As much as anybody else has in the scenario, so I didn't want any of that to change. So that bit was simple, but also Jim had done his own financial planning and he knew how much he needed, and that helped. And we knew that what he needed and what the business was worth weren't that far apart from each other, and so we could have a conversation that was sensible. Because if those two numbers are too far apart, you're never gonna meet in the middle.
Yeah.
So that was helpful too.
So you went through that process. Going through that process, do you have any sort of key, if you had to sum up, the advice or your recommendations to G2 planners and the G1 planners or founders, what would you say to them? What would you say?
So as a Generation 2 planner, what I've benefited from has always been a lot of transparency about the business. So I knew the business numbers from really early on, and that was helpful because I could understand and could think about the business as a business, not just as a load of clients and work that I was doing. And I've tried to carry that on as I've been running the business too. So transparency, just everybody sitting around and talking about what they want. I've listened to an audiobook years ago called Nonviolent Communication, which is by a guy who did lots of big international negotiations. But it's basically how to sit in a room and advocate for what you want. And that's really powerful. what I tend to find is a little bit like dealing with clients, and you talk to the parents' generation and they're going, oh, you know, I want to do this and I want to do this intergenerational planning. Oh, but I want to be fair and I don't think that they're going to want that. And then he thinks that, but my daughter thinks that separately. You go, have you talked to them about it? Have you said, oh, no, I've never done that. It's like, well, then you'll never know.
Would you get third party? Would you get a third party involved? I know you said you get Adam Hohen involved in that Ellie's conversation, but you
early
didn't
on we
the
did.
Second time.
Well, I mean, Adam had pretty much retired by the time we had that conversation again. I think third parties can help, but I think the danger is that you become reliant on having them in the room to actually be able to have a conversation as well. So not needing that is helpful too. Also, like you mentioned, Gretchen was incredibly helpful with me on 3 or 4 occasions over the past 5 years where I've felt that I'd hit a complete roadblock with the MBO. And by chance, usually, me and Gretchen had been at the same thing together and we'd had a chat. And she'd gone, oh, well, when I did it, I did this.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, of course. And then go away and work it out. So loan notes was the most recent example.
Loan notes,
I was so stuck on needing to borrow the money that I hadn't even considered looking at, can we owe the leaving owner and it still work from a tax perspective? And it was, those 2 words at the right moment from someone who'd been through it completely changed my outlook on it. So just asking people that have been through it as well helped. And I wish we'd been more prepared for the unexpected. I think that would have made... I had a very stressful 2024 because we'd planned for what we expected to happen, but we hadn't planned for what happened because we hadn't expected it.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. This is taking essentially a decade of process, from when you started it to ultimately be on the other side of things. Yeah. And we are financial planners, right? We're financial planners. We do plannings for clients. Yeah. We talk to clients about longer term. And so every single time that I've had this conversation with people who've been through the journey, it just comes down to robust planning. I'm not saying it's easy, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on the general direction of travel, in the profession and indeed the wider industry, where if we hadn't done proper enough planning, I guess virtually the only option on the table then tends to be selling to third parties, of which, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with that. But do you have any thoughts on implication for the profession on that side of things?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question and one that I gave more thought to than I ever imagined I would. Because when you're thinking about when one of the genuine options is should we sell the business? Yeah,
and you will make some money if that had happened.
Well, exactly. Yeah, as an owner, and we were having conversations with people that I thought would properly look after the clients as well, and that's the key thing. I think there's an assumption that I, as a small business owner, am the only person who could possibly look after my clients properly.
You have to believe that.
Yeah, because we've all got massive egos, which is why we run businesses. And in reality, I always say our biggest enemy, or the client's biggest enemy, is doing nothing, inaction and inertia, right? It isn't things being slightly too expensive. It isn't not getting full financial planning every year, every time. I think that because that's what I believe in. But actually, to pick the boogeyman of our sector, you look at St. James's Place, their clients are better off for having dealt with them than for sticking the money in the bank, right? So putting all the kind of high and mighty financial planning first aside, I think cultural alignment would have been really important. And I think that's hard. I don't think people who are trying to sell think hard enough about cultural alignment. That was the one thing I was interested in when I was talking to firms when there was a maybe we'll sell. And then I think everybody in the transaction, the management team in our case, what it ended up coming down to was what are the red lines? Like, what are the things that mean if we went through this, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. And so for some people, it's the 2 years after that you've got to work for the mothership or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And it's about thinking about what is that implication for you. The wider implication for the profession, it's really interesting because I think the regulator quite likes a bit of consolidation.
Yeah, because they're bigger companies, they're easier to regulate or oversee.
Yeah, and I think there's bigger risks in small businesses than people who own them think there are.
Yeah.
Because I'm very confident I'm doing a good job, as is everybody else who runs their own business. But then the news stories that come out about, and you go, oh gosh, how could that have happened? And the reason is there's very little oversight on a day-to-day basis of a small financial planning business, despite the fact that we're in a very heavily regulated space. So I think the regulator quite likes it. I think the consolidators quite like it. They can see value in doing it. What I think is really interesting, and the problem that I haven't seen solved, and maybe you have because you know more people than I do, is the business that acquires that can really do proper financial planning, as I'd see it and as you'd see it. And I think there's a cost problem as we scale because we're very people heavy in what we do. And coming on to the point you said at the start about AI, maybe that's the missing piece of the jigsaw. I think there's a big opportunity for a firm that is prepared to behave like a growth business who does really good client-centric financial planning. And I've thought that for a good few years, but it can't be as easy as I thought it was when I started thinking about it. Yeah. Otherwise, it would have happened 10 times over and it'd be the default model.
Yeah. So let's talk about that then. You've been doing some work on AI and how firms are adopting that. Sum up, and you did this incredible presentation at the CISI. It was standing room only, and talk to me about what you've seen with AI adoption in financial planning firms.
Yeah, so the background of this is that I'm mates with Heather Hopkins, who runs Next Wealth, who are a brilliant tech consultancy in financial services. She knows everybody. She knows everything. She's a great contact to have. And we'd been looking for an excuse to collaborate. And it was the ChatGPT 3 launch where we both had that light bulb moment independently and, WhatsApped each other at basically exactly the same time and went, we should do something with this. And we got together. What we ended up with and what we have ended up with is a group of about 80 companies that meet quarterly, very analog, very manual for an AI discussion forum. We have no recording of the meetings because we want Chatham House rule. We want transparency and openness. So, there's no reporting back what happened. And if there is, there's no names involved. And people share these incredible stories of implementation, of what went well, of what didn't go well. And they're often more interesting than the stories about things going well. There are AI providers in the room, but they don't have the stage. So they're not just going to, sell you their solution. But they can send their clients, if you like, to tell us what it's really like. So that's quite a nice dynamic as well. And I think in terms of what have I seen, we got in early, and so we saw the early hype and everybody trying to build a chatbot to launch on the website and them all going horribly wrong. My favorite story about chatbots was the mattress company that decided it was only going to sell through chatbots, and then people worked out how to make the chatbot promise 99% off your mattress, just by kind of confusing it with prompts. So there was that kind of initial hype wave, and then you got, I think we're actually now in the dip a little bit, the Seth Godin style, that first wave of hype is off. And I mean, you look at it last week or so in the US market, suddenly the markets are questioning AI valuations. And I'm sure they'll change their mind again next week, which is the joys of the markets. But it's easy to see the hype and it's easy to buy into the hype, and it's harder to point to return on investment for the money that you're spending on it, return on time, if not return on investment, or return, as I might call it, return on client service. And those are the three things that I try, because I'm very much a shiny things sort of person. I'd have subscriptions to every AI service going if I didn't force myself to say, am I getting return on investment, return on time, or return on client outcomes?
So the one area of adoption that I've seen is meeting notes. And for the most part, most financial planning firms are using industry, meeting notes, which are essentially, the way I think of these things, are they're thin wrappers over and above, on top of the fundamental LLMs.
Yeah.
Now, you took a different view on meeting notes, and you're using more sort of wider business, meeting notes, not the industry ones. Talk to me about what do you do and why?
Yeah, so I think you're right. I think most people are, there are 3 or 4 really good industry-specific meeting note providers. And what they do is the work really that I've done manually. Right. And the reason that I've done the work manually, so we use Fireflies.
Which is like 20 quid a month or so. Yeah. Some of our team members use another one, which is very good. What's it called now? I remember the name. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, and I didn't deliberately set out not to use industry specific, but I think our route into meeting notes was quite early on, and we used to use Zoom for all our meetings. We don't anymore, but Zoom just randomly switched on AI transcriptions.
Right.
And I was like, oh, this is cool. This summarizes our meetings. That's handy. Then started getting frustrated with it because it didn't do what we wanted it to do. It just did this transcription. The transcription wasn't very good. The summaries missed the point. So then we found Otter. That was we were early users of Otter.
Fathom is the one I was thinking about.
That's another popular
adopted
one.
Within our team. Yeah, sorry, Karen.
So we used Otter, and that was loads better because it had a chatbot, and we could ask the chatbot questions about the meetings. And suddenly that was like, wow, our power planning team, no longer 2 weeks after a meeting or whenever, we're writing things up to send out. They don't come to me and go, that meeting you had 2 weeks ago, what did you talk about? And I'm like, I don't know. I can't remember. It's 2 weeks ago. They ask the chatbot, and the chatbot gives them sensible answers. Yeah. Brilliant. Like what an enhancement. And then we found we were asking the same questions over and over. And I was like, surely we can automate this. We couldn't with Otter. There was no way to do it. So I started looking at alternatives. Fireflies would let us automate questions, basically. So it has this functionality called AI apps. You build the prompts and you run the prompts based on conditions. It's dead simple. There's no coding involved. I say it's dead simple. It's dead simple if you understand prompting.
If you
AI.
like vibe coding.
Yeah, exactly. So you just you write in your prompts. You set them when to run, and so we have standard prompts around vulnerability assessment. We have advisor training assessment, which is really handy with a new advisor. He gets more oversight, than I think in the 2 or 3 months he's been authorized as an advisor than I probably had in 5 years of, my first 5 years of working. We've got sort of compliance approved ongoing suitability financial planning report that is written with assistance from the transcription. So that's really helpful too. And they're just kind of preloaded and they run for us. So as I say, I didn't set out not to use an industry specific one, but once we'd got that far into it, I then looked at the industry specific one and I felt I had to give up too much to use them because they have their own versions of these prompt wrappers, which is really what the software does. They're going, we've built all this for you so you don't have to, which is great. But if I say, well, I don't like the way you've written that prompt, I don't like the output. One of the challenges I have with vulnerability, which is a good one, because transcriptions are really good at picking up potential vulnerabilities objectively in a way that you as the planner in the room can't do it. By that, I mean, it can pick up missing answers to questions. It can pick up confusion where we might just think, because we're mid-spiel, we don't notice it or whatever. And it can pick up kind of open loops around that sort of stuff. So that's all really good. But if you identify potential vulnerabilities, you've then got to do something with them.
Yeah.
So if you've got this automated prompt from an industry-specific bit of software, which is identifying all these potential vulnerabilities and then dropping them into your CRM, you've got to do something with that. And I worry that there are people that have got it all set up, don't realize that's happening. The next time someone picks up a file and goes, well, there are these 7 potential vulnerabilities identified. What did you do with them? So you've got to understand what it's actually doing and where it's going. Otherwise, I think you build these unknown risks into it as well. But yeah, so not being able to tune those to the way we wanted to, and because I guess we've got the skills in the business that we could do it that way, I wouldn't necessarily advocate that everybody do it that way, because stuff breaks periodically, and then I've got to fix it.
Yeah, that's the weakness in this, that I am going to imagine, something like 90% of firms will use industry standard ones, which means that you give up a bit of control over what it does and this pace of development, but versus the ones that I'm not trying to insult you, which is like that you've cobbled together.
Yeah,
you incur technical debt,
absolutely,
and so you have to decide exactly what works for you as a business.
And the analogy I think which is relevant is, I know firms that amazingly still use Excel to do cash flow forecasting.
Yeah.
Just because they say, I can't trust the timelines of the world because I know what this does. Yeah. And that's great. There's space for them. And if the models work and they get the outcomes the clients need, brilliant. But I mean, you wouldn't catch me using Excel except for the CFP, which I was obliged to use Excel for. I wouldn't do it by choice. So
beyond meeting notes though, what other areas of AI adoption have you seen?
So this is where it gets messy, right? Meeting notes are the lowest of low-hanging fruit.
Yes, absolutely.
And the proof of concept, right? Yes, we can make AI work in financial services, but everything else is just so much more complicated.
Right.
I've got a friend who works in AI development. He's a coder, and I talked him through about a year ago what a financial planning report looks like. And he was like, I'm sure it's easily automatable. So I explained, these are the inputs, these are the things we think about, these are the various bits of software we use, these are the sorts of things we want to talk about. And he basically went, AI is not going to do that for a while, because it's a very messy set of inputs and outputs from multiple different points. It's too easy for the models to basically confuse themselves. You'd have to build a series of distinct bits, right? Well, this is doing this bit, this is doing that bit. Or you'd have to have such narrow guardrails that actually you weren't getting much automation at all.
Right.
When I talk about our ongoing sort of financial planning suitability email output, that is so specifically written that it's actually very little of it's automated.
Right.
It's filling out some bits from the conversation, but largely it's a template. So I think that's everyone thinks that's the next step, but I'm not actually sure it is. Where I see the opportunity, and there are a couple of people that are really looking at this seriously, but I think not enough, is automation of workflow, because I think that is something that is ripe for more automation, and it's not as sort of sexy or interesting to the planning community.
Yeah,
but it's actually the glue that keeps our business running, and I think that's probably the next big evolution, I suspect.
That's interesting. Of course, I know the industry AI providers will disagree. So you have meeting notes. Suitability letter seems to be the next natural evolution. We'll come back to, I'll give you my thoughts on workflows, but suitability letters seems to be the next natural evolution of this. And, firms like Advisory AI are doing something in this space. You talked about some sort of work that you've done, essentially getting Microsoft Copilot to help you with that. Talk to a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. Where you need research and you need depth of understanding of stuff you've already done, Copilot and other LLMs are similar, work really well as long as you understand their limitations.
Yeah.
So like, look through all my emails and draw out the key talking points that I might have with a client I'm meeting in an hour.
Right.
It's great at that. It's better than a human being at that. Although it will still get lost in sort of dead ends.
Can he pick things from your CRM, for instance? Can he pick things from your financial planning tool your cash flow modeling tool, for instance, to sum up the current position of the client.
Sort of nearly is the answer.
Yes.
And that's the problem, right? We're at, and this is what I mean about the dip. We're at the point where like 8 out of the 10 steps are there, but the last 2 steps are the most important. Copilot have launched notebooks, which is their basically carbon copy of Google Notebook LM. I don't know if you've used Notebook LM.
No.
It's genius. I'm also a governor for my sins, and we had
school governor.
we had an Ofsted inspection, and I was going to be speaking to Ofsted, and I drew all of the sort of public documentation, the last report, all these sorts of things, and threw them into a notebook model, and it created a 15-minute podcast of 2 people speaking about the school. And on my drive up to the meeting with Ofsted, I listened to the podcast, and that was enough to get all the key, because you remember a conversation more than you remember reading a very dry report from a regulator, and it was a much better sort of preparation technique. So Microsoft have got something similar. I've used it. I've trialed it with throw in planning documents, throw in whatever, and get some information out, and it's better than I expected, but it's still not production ready. Yeah. So maybe 3 months, maybe 6. That'll be a game changer again for advisor research and preparation. I'm still not sure it's at the level where it can spit out a competent financial planning report.
Interesting.
I think we're a little bit away, and I think Advisory AI are doing a lot on it. I think Saturn are doing quite a bit on it as well. Those are the 2 I know best. The challenge you have is the propensity for the AI to just make stuff up is always there. It's ever present. And so if you've got to read every line of this report anyway, I'm not sure how much time you're saving. And it'll get better. They always say this is the worst it'll ever be. And they're right. It'll get better. But I don't feel we're quite there yet.
Yeah. And we have to try and wrap this up, otherwise we'll be kicked out of the studio. I would love to. I would love to talk about some of the work that we've been doing in this space, but I'll save that for another time. If you have to sum up your key takeaways and recommendations for firms on AI adoption, what would it be?
So the first one's really boring, but absolutely necessary, is realize that even if you don't think people in your firm are using AI, they are. And therefore make sure that you've got policies in place about client data, about how it's used. I think in the presentation I did, I said the policy is not allowed to say don't use AI because that isn't going to happen. So that's step one, the boring stuff. Get it right. Speak to compliance people. If they haven't got AI policies for you, find new compliance people, or get ChatGPT to write you one. It's very good at writing policies. The second is if you as the business owner or the person thinking about this isn't an evangelist for this stuff, that's fine. You don't need to be, but find someone in your business who is. Because there probably will be somebody who's keen and interested and wants to look at this stuff. And having someone who will advocate for automation, for tech and for AI in the business, I think is how you keep yourself honest to progression of technology. So those 2 things probably. And then the third one obviously is come talk to us about AI Lab, because it's a great community. And that's where I've got all my best learning from.
Good stuff. Alasdair Walker, has been wonderful talking to you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your wisdom.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for the work that you do.
Yeah, good to speak.
That's a wrap on today's show. Massive thanks to my production crew, especially Jake Osha, Melissa Canham, and the entire team. And of course, to our sponsor, Timeline, the market-leading provider of integrated planning technology and model portfolio service to advisors. I do hope you've enjoyed today's show. Head over to Apple Podcast and give us your review there. Until next time, goodbye.